Hey everyone, it's Katie and Elisha from NowThatWe'reAFamily.com. And today,
We're going to talk about money and budgeting.
so recently we've received a lot of questions as to how we've done budgeting in times past and how we handle money in our marriage. Do we have a dual income system? Does Katie take care of all the financing and purchasing? Do I oversee everything? Were we ever broke at one point in our life? And the answer to those questions is we're going to tell you right now. And you probably already know this by this point, but Katie and I, we are not finance experts.
No, we actually aren't experts in anything. And actually, we put off answering a lot of these questions because we get finance questions consistently with the Q&A box that we put up on Mondays on Instagram. And we kind of usually gloss over them. Sometimes we briefly touch on them. So hopefully we can kind of talk through everything and answer all your questions today. If you have any more questions, we have no more wisdom to share. So this video is it.
You need to be one with your spouse. You are a team in this endeavor of figuring out finances. It's funny because a couple weeks into marriage, Katie and I, when we were going to join our bank account together, which that step right there, make sure you have a joint bank account with your spouse. But when we went and did that, we renamed it to Elisha and Katie Inc. We really started viewing ourselves as like a new business. We viewed ourselves as a startup company. And with any startup company, you need revenue. And so instead of viewing money as, are we getting greedy or what's enough? Are we being content with what the Lord has? Just this practical necessity in order for the basic operations of the home. And so we early on made a budget. It was like pulling teeth. I didn't want to do it. Katie wanted to do it, and then I wanted to do it, but then she didn't want to do it. And then we started making a budget, and by the time we got like $400 past what our income was, we were like, let's stop doing it. Like, I don't like this anymore. I don't, sometimes the truth hurts, but you need to tell the truth. I forget who said it, but there's a quote that says the first step of progress is telling the truth. And so being on the same page, you're a team. Her debt, his debt? No, it's now your debt. I don't care who accrued that debt before you were married. It's now your guys' debt. Her spending habits, his saving habits? No, it's your collectively. It's now your spending habits together. And so the more you start thinking in regards to team and one, the easier it is to actually start making progress once you have identified your goals or identified what the problems are in the area of finances.
If you have an extreme amount of debt, you're going to have to be willing to do an extreme lifestyle change in order to pay that off. Whenever you have, something that you really, really want and what you're currently doing is not going to get you there, then you're going to have to make a massive shift in your current standard of living, or just whatever life looks like right now, it's going to have to look different to achieve your goal. So don't try to keep your life looking exactly the same and achieve your goal if you want to do it rapidly and very effectively. We've done this with a lot of other areas in our life where we've just gone very extreme. And one of the biggest areas right now is the fact that because we have an online business, we've gone extreme with protecting our home from the online environment because that can be very fatiguing for us. So, that comes with the no smartphones. And right now we actually have no internet at our house at all. We're just like in a little bubble, even though we're in this online space, because we needed to do extreme things to protect ourselves for this specific situation that we are in. So you need to be willing to do that.
So whatever the pain point is, whatever the goal is, there needs to be this willingness to change. I think it's so easy to say, I want to be healthier or I want to get out of debt. But then deep down, we're like, but I don't want to change anything. And that's a really silly mindset to have. And I think intuitively we know that that's not realistic, but still everything in us, our whether you call it our flesh or our sinful desire or just, this laziness to not actually want to do hard things can really peek its head. And we're like, well, I kind of like my comforts. I like my creature comforts. So you have to have this willingness when you look and you tell the truth. You say, okay, this is where we are. This is where we want to get to. Between between here and there's going to be some discomfort. There's going to be some pain. Maybe there's going to be some uncomfortable situations and maybe some sacrifices that we have to make.
So something that really helped us in this season of life, our first year of marriage, was one, we started listening to people who normalized our situation, because we start to think and expect things that the people around us think and expect. And so if we're hanging out with really materialistic people, then that would be a big value system of ours, and it would feel like we were crazy to not be putting our money that way. Now, this can kind of be a double-edged sword when it comes to who you're putting yourself around, because you also want to put yourself around people who have a high level of income if you are trying to increase your income, because you become like the 5 people that you spend the most time around. We were listening to Dave Ramsey a lot. They share testimony after testimony after testimony of people living with way less than what we were living with and paying off a huge amount of debt. And it really normalizes that. And it makes you think, oh, well, what we're doing isn't that extreme, or what we're doing isn't that bad. And so normalizing what you're doing can be really impactful and sticking it out for the long run.
Yeah, and if you don't know people that are going to be those people that normalize it for you, you have to find resources like what we did online, whether that's podcasts or blogs or YouTube videos, and you have to just listen for hours of people making these extreme decisions seem normal, because otherwise you're going to fall back to your old habits. And it's really challenging. I mean, I think of that first year of marriage. When I went into marriage, my favorite things were, I loved skiing, I loved playing golf, I loved eating out with friends. I was in Bend, Oregon. You go to all the breweries and all the cool little restaurants. Those were my things. Those are my favorite things. Well, all of those things had to go if we were going to start making gains in our if we were going to start making gains in our savings. And in my brain, I was like, it's going to be impossible for me to enjoy my life if I'm not playing golf, if I'm not skiing, if I'm not eating out with my friends and, going to CrossFit. But that right there was a lot of money that we are going to eliminate from our expenses. What I had to do then was normalize that. I had to listen to story after story and hear these testimonies of people that had made extreme sacrifices short term for a bigger picture, a bigger payoff that they had down the road.
Like, it's not saying no to entertainment. It's just changing the entertainment that you're doing, or maybe that you're used to. It's not saying no to your health and wellness. It's just changing how that looks in this season. And I think that that's really cool. What are some ways that we can substitute what we are currently doing for something that's still filling that same need, but isn't as expensive? You have to know what you're saying yes to. This is just a huge life thing. Anytime you're doing something hard in your life, you have to know what you're saying yes to, because in the moment, you aren't going to want to say no to whatever it is if you aren't saying yes to something bigger. So if you're saying no to eating out, you're saying, in our case, our first year, we were saying yes to being able to pay for bringing a baby into the world.
Yeah.
Because we were pregnant and we couldn't afford health insurance, and our midwife wouldn't take health insurance anyways. And so we had to pay $5,000 in 9 months. And so we had to save that amount of money. So we knew what we were saying yes to every time we were saying no to whatever, going to the theater or whatever the case may be.
That we really didn't have much savings at this point. I had been a good saver in times past, but that all went away with in the 3 months leading up to marriage, with the wedding ring, our vacation, the deposit, the honeymoon,
the vacation,
whatever, those romantic vacations that you have right after your wedding. What are those called? This is so boring. We're going on and on.
That's why we have an editor.
So 2 weeks into marriage, when we found out that we were pregnant, we had about $400 in our savings account. And that was on top of realizing that our monthly expenses were greater than our income. And so this was kind of an under the gun moment. Oftentimes people will ask, hey, how do you know when you're financially ready to have a baby? And it's like, boy, we've never felt that way. But what's cool is that you've got 9 months. And looking back, I don't know if we would have grown in the confidence that we did in our ability to save money had we not been put under the gun like that. It was this definitive timeline where we're like, okay, This is a clear goal, $5,000 to pay for this baby, and we've got 9 months. Now, when we were able to do that, that gave us confidence. We're like, okay, well, if we were able to pay for that baby, we can now start getting ahead because we had the habits at that point, right? Out of necessity, we were able to learn these new habits. And so if you just keep waiting for the right time, oftentimes you'll always be living to, you'll always meet the, like your comfort of living will always meet your income level or something like that. And I think that being forced early on to live below our means really flexed that muscle and gave us this confidence that like, oh, wait a second, we can do this. We can find a way to eliminate costs, to increase revenue, and so forth.
And we really learned that living below your means, it's this kind of vague term, but for us, that didn't mean that we could pay for all of our expenses at the end of the month. It meant that we are saving money. That's what living below our means was, because if you aren't saving money, then you're actually not living below your means, because when your car breaks down, you're gonna have to put it on a credit card. Or when, a hospital bill does come up, or, you are in a wedding. We were in so many weddings, and all of a sudden you have to pay for, the tuxedo and the travel and all that stuff. Then you don't have money for that. So it's like, there's just extra expenses every single month. And so our needs, we found, needed to be below an amount where we could still save. And that was really important for us. What were we doing to ensure that 5 years from now, our revenue would be larger than what it was today? And that was really important for us.
That's exactly right. You talked about like the basic, okay, we need more money this month. And that requires you to make some tactical decisions in the moment. But you don't want to keep doing that month over month where you're like, okay, we're only going to eat beans and rice this month so that we can cut the grocery bill down. Well, you don't want to do that for very long. And it's the same thing when you start, I even think of some of the ways I earned money, I increased the revenue. It was very short-term thinking. We sold one of our cars. It's like, well, you can only sell so many cars. That's not a long-term solution, right? But it was a tactical decision in the moment. I remember I had this big tent that I used to use for selling Christmas trees. And I sold it for like $1,500, which was so much money for us at the time. Well, I couldn't do that time and time again. It wasn't repeatable. So those were tactical decisions that were solving the immediate problem, but it wasn't building a bigger future. And so I use the analogy all the time, just like in chess, you need to have strategy, the more long-term plan for your game, but then you also need to have tactics, the next best move. And I think with creating a budget and living under your means and having a bigger financial future, you have to have a good vision, that strategy where you're thinking, okay, in the next 3 to 5 years, our income could be here, our savings could be there, we might be able to purchase this home, and then you break it down to your tactics. So then what's the next best move that we can make today in order to make that a reality, to achieve that goal? And so I think implementing both those things is really necessary, because if you just focus on the tactics, and you're like, okay, I'm not gonna buy the coffee, that gets old really fast. And at some point you're going to I don't want to speak this over you, but you'll probably fall off the bandwagon. But if you're not buying the coffee and also implementing a plan that's going to increase your revenue down the road, whether that's going back to school to increase your earning capability, starting a side business, whatever it is, trying to add on to your house so that you can have an ADU to rent out and have additional income, all those things give you that bigger vision for down the road.
So some of the things that we did the first year were, you mentioned no coffee, no eating out. Picking up all of our furniture was either given to us, we built it, or we picked it up by the side of the road, which sounds super grungy. But it totally worked. We had 2 kiddos, and they're 13 months apart, so they're really little, and our revenue did not increase much during that time. And so we had a tiny little apartment, and so we used one of our closets and we built this little bunk bed because they were both really tiny and it filled pretty much the whole closet. And we put a video here on YouTube about it. And this really sticks in my mind because one of the comments that someone left was, "Why did you guys do this? You don't live in a third world country." And that person was not who we wanted to surround ourselves with, right? Because they're saying, hey, why are you living this way? You live in America. You should, what? Like, your kid needs a 10 by 12 foot space to sleep when they go to bed. And so we really wanted to be around people who, going back to that normalization thing, were comfortable with doing things that make other people uncomfortable. If you want to get where you want to go, you're going to make some people uncomfortable along the way. It wasn't our 2 kiddos. They were happily sleeping in the closet, but other people's expectations were made uncomfortable by some of the decisions that we made. And
I've already said, if you don't know those people to put yourself around, then find them online. find the podcast, find the YouTube channel or the blog, whatever it is, so that you can just put those voices into your head. Because I can go from a place where the only thing that matters to people is the Sunday football game. That's what everybody's talking about. That's all they care about. And over time, that's all you care about. And that goes with everything in life. And so if everybody that you're around is into new clothes and into new cars and nice houses and eating out at nice restaurants, that's going to be the only thing that you value. And so you'll look at what your current life situation is and you're like, I am deprived. These are the only things that matter in life, and I'm not able to partake in them. And so you're going to feel deprived. But if you surround yourself with people that like being scrappy, they like being countercultural, they like going out and experiencing different things that aren't as expensive, they're not as materialistic, you will over time start valuing those things as well. And so, Katie already mentioned how coffee was a big sacrifice for me when we started this budgeting thing. I was like, man, just $5 in the morning. Sometimes it's only $3 if I just get an espresso or a drip cup of coffee. But still, that added up, right? We all know that adds up when you do it daily. And so I started just buying coffee, buying a $12 bag at the grocery store and bringing that home and making French press. It's bizarre. That became my favorite time of the day quickly, like over a month. I was like, what have I been doing this whole time? Going out and getting a coffee? I love my time in the morning now, making my own coffee. And to this day, like if somebody wants to meet me for coffee in the morning, I'm like, no, I do my coffee by myself at home in the privacy of my home. And I've really learned to love that. And I'm just giving that as an example to let you know you can change your appetites. You can change what you think is a good experience or a bad experience. And also, you really get to set the tone for what your kids think is cool and what they think is exciting. If they think that that what they need for their birthday party is a huge bounce house and they need ponies and they need, a $10,000 birthday party, then they are going to be disappointed. But you know that that's not the reality of life. They don't need that in order to feel loved and have a good childhood. We all know that. So go ahead and lean into that and give them the new experiences that are far more affordable. Yeah, so early on, Katie already referenced Dave Ramsey. I mean, again, if you've got piles of debt, I don't know why this is like such a proven system. I know everybody's got their opinion of him, but I feel like that's like a starting point. Go there, and if you really think that your scenario is different, listen for like a month, listen to his program, or try going through Financial Peace University, which we did early on in our marriage. We're like, oh, this is so helpful. So I'd say start with Dave Ramsey. It's like he is the king of this space for a reason. I will say this too, something that happens, okay, in families. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
You can become so obsessed with living below your means or getting out of debt or never using a credit card that you can actually taint your family culture, your kiddos' childhood. And I think oftentimes this happens where the parents, they're united, the mom and the dad, they're like, this is what we're going to do. This is the only thing that matters. And they've got their 8-year plan for getting out of debt or paying off their home or whatever it is. And the kids, meanwhile, are still trying to live their childhood, okay? And they are able to see that the only thing mom and dad care about is getting out of debt. And we know money is an issue when it becomes an idol, when it's all you think about, when it's the first thing you wake up, and it was the first thing you think about when you wake up, or it's the last thing you think about when you're going to bed. Clearly, that's an idol in your life. Whether that's the deficiency of funds or the abundance of funds, it's still becoming an idol. And so if your kids see you doing that, then that's a huge issue. So I think you should go to these tools and go to these resources and keep money in its proper place. It is a necessity to fuel the thing that you're doing right now, which is building a family. And there's so many things that you're able to do in an affordable way. It is a necessity. I don't want to take away from the real pain that money can be, or the lack thereof. It could be a real pain point in a marriage and in a family. But also, you think 20 years down the road, looking back, like you're not going to get these next 5 years back with your kids, right? You're not going to get their childhood back again. And so don't have their only memory being that you just wanted to pay off the house or you just want to get out of credit card debt. So keep that in mind, I think, when you go to these resources.
Yeah, I kind of go back to the giant 5, right? But having like God first, and then marriage, then family, then health, and then finances down here. So whether that's paying off finances or earning more money or all of those things, paying off finances, you guys know what I mean. We want to keep all the other things in perspective and keep that hierarchy there, even while we're pursuing this really worthwhile goal. And someone else that really helped me was Jordan Page. I went through all of her old videos, and we did intense budgeting for a period of time. I got Elisha on board the budget boat after watching Jordan Page's videos, and we opened up separate bank accounts, which we still have to this day, which is really helpful because it helps see every $10 and $20 count.
Yes.
If you just have a really big goal of like paying off a house or buying a new car, whatever, say it's a $20,000 goal, then it doesn't matter like the $10 Spotify, subscription you're paying every month. Like that doesn't make a dent in that $20,000 goal. So it was really helpful for us to have these different bank accounts open for different things. And it really made, the money that we made selling, duplicates of wedding gifts that we got worth it. It was great when I got $60 for my extra Instapot, or $5 for the dish rags I had. And so that's really important. And Jordan Page helped us see that. And then also we did go to the straight up envelope cash system, didn't buy anything online, and kept with that until we reached our spending goals. So, and then the other person that Elisha listened to a lot that I didn't was Mr. Money Mustache.
Yeah, and I think I actually read his blog more than anything. He might have a podcast, and I might have listened to him here and there, but Mr. Money Mustache was a great resource for me. Once again, just an extreme person that went crazy extreme with being like, you know what? Can I live on $1,100 a month? Can I live on $900 a month? Okay, now they've got a child. Can we still live on $1,200 a month in an expensive area? You're like, what? And they just were doing crazy things. And so it really, like what Katie said, normalized doing crazy things. Your ego is the most expensive liability you have. And I think that was so true for me. No, that's so true. Whether I think it's, earning can be a really big part of a man's identity, their earning capability. And your appearance sometimes gets in the way of what reality is. And that was something that was really helpful early on in being Elisha and Katie Inc. is I didn't wrap my identity up in a specific job. It was like all of this revenue. Okay, I'm working at a restaurant. The tips, the payroll, and then my music lessons and walking dogs, and then helping a friend, install blinds because he would give me some work, helping a friend install mailboxes, $100 there, $100 here. It was all revenue for Elisha and Katie Inc. And I was CEO of that, and Katie was COO of that. And so I think that really helped us and helped me with my identity, because otherwise, you can start just living this false life of paying for things that you can't afford and then being discouraged because you're not matching the whatever ideal you had in your brain. And so just that line that your ego is the most expensive liability you have really stuck with me, and it continues to stick with me this day.
If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and we will see you next Thursday. Hey you guys, I just wanted to tell you real quick about my homeschooling course, Homeschooling the First 3 Years. It's all about laying a foundation of joy and confidence and fun and simplified homeschool in your home. So if you're in a place where maybe you're considering homeschooling your kiddos in the next few years, then this course is for you. It's going to break down not only what we do for homeschool in our family and what we've done for the first 3 years in homeschool, but it's also going to show you exactly how that looks. So I'm going to take a camera around with me vlog style and show you how does it look to homeschool with a baby? How does it look to homeschool with a toddler? How does it look to homeschool multiple grades at one time? How do you navigate different learning tendencies? How do you navigate your learning style as a teacher? And how do you motivate children and get them to love learning? I love homeschooling my kids. One of my favorite things that I get to do with them each day, and it's something that I want you to love doing with your children as well. So if you look down in the description box, you will be able to find a discount code where you can get a discount off of Homeschool the First 3 Years, and I really hope that it blesses your home.
Hello, my name is Elisha Voberg. This is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor.